Good morning. This is Andy from Mountain Computers. Today is October 30th. It's a Wednesday. It's 25 degrees outside, and that means it's 25 degrees in here. This is the sunroom. It's great in the summer. It's cold in the winter. But it's separate than our store. But anyhow, this is Andy, Mountain Computers, Go Green PC Tune-Up Guy. Oh, I can tell you, it's been a crazy couple days. But the good thing is we're doing good. So today's letter is R, as in Romeo. We have quite a few subjects in R that come across our desk, come across my desk, every week, almost every day. Oh, and by the way, this video is brought to you by, I think this is Zazzle. Again, this coffee cup I got as a gift. It says, I never thought I could be such a cool uncle, and yet here I am. So, thank you so much, Gilbert, for the coffee cup. He's my nephew. Good guy. So anyhow, R. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 topics on R today. And we'll be brief. Time me. For those of you who are interested, check out my blog, check out my vlog, check out my other videos. We just record this and post it. Somebody asked me, why don't you go ahead and add some music and add some other stuff and some links and stuff. Well, that's in our description. I don't get crazy. Like I told you, we want to do this to share knowledge. We got a new subscriber the other day. That's great. Awesome. We don't have a lot, but there will be a day when this piles up and it gets crazy good. So, back to the letter R. So first R. And I'll just read through them real quick so you can decide whether or not you want to continue watching or fast forward. RAID, R-A-I-D, 0, 1, 5, and 10, RAM, random number generators, RNG, DRAND, Ready Boost, Redundancy, Relational Database Management Systems, Remote Desktop, Reports, I would say RJ11, RJ45, some discussion about that, and RTFM. And now if you know what that means, it'll be at the end. It's a good one. Let me tell you a little bit more why I put RTFM in there. It stands for Read the Manual. So yeah, RAID. Let's talk about RAID. RAID is a drive configuration specification that deals with redundancy of drives, your data on your drives in your computer. So there's RAID 0. That's just basically striping. So you have two drives, and so they're 1 terabyte each. When you RAID 0 them, 2 times 1 becomes 2 terabytes. There's no protection, but it's really fast. It's great to read from. Gamers like RAID 0. It expands their hard drives, like 2 512s to 128s. It just doubles it, speeds it up. Motherboards usually support it these days. There was a time when RAID wasn't on most boards. There was a feature called JBOD, which means just a bunch of disks. JBOD configuration. So RAID 0. RAID 1 is mirroring. So if you have two 1 terabyte drives, and I have several customers that are engineers that have RAID 1, and they'll have a 1 terabyte drive and another 1 terabyte drive. This drive matches that drive. Now mind you, RAID can come from hardware or from software. You can have RAID implemented at the hardware level is extremely fast to recover, repair, etc. RAID 5. I can't tell you how many IT people that I know of. Are they smart? They've been around a while, but they implement RAID 5 on servers. Just because it means basically you can have one drive, two drive fail, and you still have the server still running, but you lose more than that, then you're SOL. So RAID 5, it's slow to repair. It's difficult to repair. It's slow to recovery, which brings us to RAID 10. RAID 10 is awesome. It's basically RAID 1 plus RAID 0. So 1, 0. So if you have 4 drives, say for instance, on many of the servers that we've built in the last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, we'll have 4 drives. They all have to be the same size, not necessarily the same manufacturer. definitely the same speed, 7,200 RPM, not 5,400 RPM, and not 10,000 RPM like some crazy drives that you get from Seagate. But RAID 10 is basically 2 drives that are striped. So you have 2 1 terabytes become 2, and then another 2 1 terabytes that become 2, and then those get mirrored. So basically you have the speed of RAID 0 and the protection of RAID 1. So striping plus mirroring. Now many servers that we've deployed and shipped, 4 terabyte, 8 terabyte, we did some 20 terabytes here shortly, lately, and that's a lot of data, but it's awesome. But so how we do a server, the boot drive is usually an SSD drive, like 120 gig SSD drive. So we'll put Windows Server, 2012, 2016 on it, Microsoft Windows Server, 1 or 2 CPUs, and then we'll put in, 4 drives for your data and 1 for your operating system. The SSD drive boots extremely fast, installs fast, updates fast, reboots fast, easy to back up, easy to include in the system image recovery. And then you have all of your data. And then you have a NAS device someplace out there to back up your data, or just an external drive plugged into it that's big, just so you can run a Windows backup. But that's R for RAID. So RAID, 0, 1, 5, and 10. 0 is stripe, 1 is mirror, 5 is basically a lot of drives. And they all have to be the same size, remember? Same speed is recommended. And RAID 10. RAID 10 is our favorite. So let's talk about RAM. Now there's 2 types of RAM that go in computers, laptops and desktops. There's DDR3, DDR4, and SODIMMs. SODIMMs go into laptops. That's like I think it's 104 pin or something like that, 204. The others are like 240 pin. But the speeds that we usually use are 1600, 2400, or 1333. Now, those are the recommended speeds that we use. 2400 we've been putting into some high-end workstations, basically for civil engineering. And that's quick. 3000, we don't. The sweet spot is 2400. The amount of RAM that we throw into systems now is minimum 8 gig. 16, definitely long term. 32 gig, yes, a lot of 32 gigs on server boards. Higher, 128. Now, if you get to 128, you're basically going into like a 1U or 2U form factor server. It goes into a data center. So when it comes to RAM pricing, you can get 16 gig of RAM, 32 gig of RAM for about 150 bucks or less. So, do some shopping. On your laptops, if you have 4 gig of RAM, it's cheap to add another 4. Or if you have 2 2s, swap that out for 2 8s. Get to 16 gig. On laptops, RAM is maxed out at 16 gig, and that's because of power. Now, if you have a high-end laptop, like a very high-end laptop, like Alienware or some MSI or Asus that's a gaming laptop, you can reach 32 gig from the manufacturer. That's it for RAM. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Random number generators. Okay, I've been doing tokenized serialized integration systems for 20 years. Okay, and I can tell you random number generation is very vital. An article just came out. I put it over in my blog as of today's date, October 30th. And AMD and Intel got busted on some of their microcode. Their random number generator, the DRAND, is coming back with straight Fs. And it's affecting gamers, and it should affect encryption big time, because a random number generator in the microcode at that hardware level has to be perfect. Now, I don't tolerate stupidity when it comes down to especially that level of mistake. I mean, people get fired over that because it's a huge risk, security risk. I have in SQL, way up at the application layer, done random number generation for integrated tokenized serial systems. Not blockchain yet, not crypto yet, but I'm working on it. But you can go to 100 million and still get perfect high precision randomization in SQL. Not using their functions, write your own, do your own math. A trillion, yes, 100 times, 10 times 100 million, no problem. trillion per second per minute. So, I mean, if you do it right, you won't have a problem. But somebody did it wrong, so. ReadyBoost. Have you heard about ReadyBoost in a long time? That's basically you plug a USB external drive or a SanDisk or something like that in, and right-click on it and say, make this ReadyBoost, and extend your RAM of your existing computer system, usually a laptop. It never ever quite worked right, or I was doing something wrong. But I saw that and I was like, I wonder if that's still working. And by definition it should, but I haven't seen a lot of application use ever since it came out, so. Anyhow, ReadyBoost, interesting. Redundancy. Let's talk about redundancy. Backups, software, and your documentation, your serial numbers. No matter what you do, I have clients where they have a file, and every business client I have, we have a file, or even customers at home that have a little complicated network. Small Soho, small office, home office. I will document on a piece of paper and put it in a folder called IT folder, a manila folder. And I'll have a copy of that myself. So when I'm done sketching out their business network on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, I will make a copy of that and bring that home and put it in my file. Just hard copy, and keep it. And usually if it's been a while, like a year passes and nothing really changes, then I don't have to worry about it. But you gotta have redundancy, not only in your software, your CDs for your servers, jump drives for your servers for recovery, but also your software and your licenses. And the reason why I bring that up is two or three companies that got audited by BSA, and I came in and helped them out to get out of the issue. And we did an audit, did a quick IT audit of all their workstations, all their software, all their license, and what BSA, they fired somebody who was in IT, and they thought, the IT person thought, oh my God, we're using illegal software or something. Well, the person didn't know what they were talking about. So the IT audit revealed there was more than enough licenses. We submitted that to the Business Software Alliance, and Business Software said, thank you so much, we appreciate it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you have to have backup of your documentation for serial numbers and licenses. If, like for one instance, I just reordered and extended a volume license for Adobe Acrobat Pro, and I said, here's the code for this many PCs. Don't overuse them, and keep track of who you assigned it to. Well, they hit the limit and didn't say anything. So I was like, why is this coming back revoked from Adobe? And I was like, did somebody take this code and when they're not supposed to and take it home? Who knows? But the audit proved that we were okay. So I said, well, let's just extend the number of licenses you need. So redundancy in your licensing documentation is important, because I could prove that everything was assigned correctly. However, there's people that aren't so ethical inside companies, so they'll think, oh, it's okay, I use it at work, I use it at home. The concurrency license is a little different. That is per vendor, per manufacturer, so be careful. Make sure you have good documentation, good redundancy of your software, your licenses, and your network topology, your business map. There are some businesses here in Reno and in the West that I know of that they don't update their documentation until I come back, and I'm like, why is that there? And if you replace that device, don't give it the same IP address as the old device if it's a critical piece of equipment. Make sure it's different so people don't inadvertently, run into technical support issues, and I mean, you can do other things. I mean, just make sure you have good redundancy in your documentation. Let's talk about Relational Database Management Systems, RDBMS. This is one of my favorites. I've been doing RDBMS stuff for, 30 years. Early years, SQL 4.2.1, SQL 4.21 to SQL 6 to 7 to 2000. 2000, was it 8, 12, 14, 17, 19? But it comes down to, and I even taught 500 plus state employees here in Nevada through the NCAA organization, and webcasted that on how to use relational database management, design databases, tables, queries, indexes. So all my mentees out there, I want to say hi. There's about 5 of you that are awesome. There's 2 or 3 of you that sort of suck, but that's okay. I tell all my mentees, you've got to learn how to use, read and write, do data I/O to a database. Square one. Doesn't matter if it's in C#, Visual Basic, ASP, whatever language. I don't care. Python, you name it. Every language needs to understand how to read and write files, file I/O, database I/O, and use the native language. Performance is critical in relationships between databases. You have to be like OLADB. I've been using OLADB for SQL forever. Even in some of my, I got interviewed one time about 20 years ago by Washomed Renown, and it was a SQL database level 4 job. And the people that were interviewing me, they didn't hire me, but you know, they're trying to be tricking the interview on RDBMS questions. And I was like, okay, you can do that, but here's the downside. And they're like, oh, we like doing that. And I said, well, here's the downside. And if you're willing to take I mean, there's one side of it, it's easy. Everybody can program in that. But then the downside is the performance hit. So they didn't know that. They were using the wrong type of protocol when communicating to their databases at Washomed. And the other company, did I put this one down? No, it's coming up on R. But Sierra Nevada Corporation, very good corporation. They had Lotus Notes, 7 different divisions at the time. It was taking them 3 months to get reports done when it should have taken 15 minutes. So they asked if I could help them out, and I looked at the situation. I said, well, you're going to have to bring me on board. They didn't. The people, they still have problems, but it's okay. It's not a big deal. They've got people that can fix stuff. They get paid a lot to fix things, okay? So the databases I use, Microsoft SQL, good. MySQL, that's part of the LAMP stack. The other one's part of the Microsoft stack. PostgreSQL, very cool. MariaDB, very cool. Cloud-based, client-based, server-based, doesn't matter. And you can always test things with Microsoft Access, a real light client where you can actually migrate the SQL, the native SQL, OLADB SQL, to the server. And it should migrate pretty well. When it comes to relational databases, there's 3 rules. 1, make sure you have your tables defined properly. Maximum of 3 indexes per table. Okay? And as far as performance-wise, you can do 100 million rows easily. Know how to use ETL, export, transport, transfer, transport and load, ETL. And understand the difference between OLAP and online OLAP. God, man, my brain is hurting. Oh, and what's very important is in these casinos here that do player tracking, their player tracking, for the most part, from what I've experienced and watched, sucks. So if you are a gamer and you need good player tracking, you got to track it yourself, no matter what. Do your best. Their relational database management systems are in error because of humans, not because of the system. Okay, so enough said about that. That will come up to hurt a lot of people that I know. If you don't have good player tracking systems, and recourse to help players out if tracking isn't done properly. Okay, so it's doable. Just think about it. Next are remote desktop, RDP. I use TeamViewer for all my remote support. It's a paid license. I paid for 3 licenses, and then when they stopped supporting the version 8 that I used, then they made me go into a subscription model. TeamViewer, love you guys, German-based, whatever. You guys are stupid. You're charging too much for something that, you know, there used to be type BNC and server-based and all that stuff, and you're saying you've got to like maintain the security of it. Yeah, you're going to get hacked, and that's why I don't put any of my contacts, or I don't sign in. I just keep everything manual and keep the IDs totally isolated, and your log files are crazy. But that's why a lot of my older peers use remote desktop, RDP, port 3389. But move the port off of 3389, folks, if you have a server that's internet facing. Move it real high. Just ran into a problem where one of our servers was attempted to be hacked on RDP, and the server wasn't, I was like, I hadn't seen that server in 7 years. And when I noticed high traffic, I was like, what's going on? And they were jiggling the door handle, knocking on the door on RDP at that port, and I was like, man. So I contacted the abuse people at the various IP sources and said, you need to cut this out and shut these people off. They're coming from Russia, China, Africa. East Coast Verizon networks, these people are like crazy. So use RDP, but if you do use RDP, and some of my clients can't nail down their IP address to a security policy that says the source IP of that RDP is coming from here and here only, I do that on my servers that I remote to. Amazon, EC2, they say you can only RDP from this /32, which is a single IPv4 address, which is my network. Can't spoof that, and they try, whatever. So that's it with RDP. I love RDP, but have security policies on your IP sources for RDP, even if you're on 3389, as well as make sure that the remote accounts, the admin accounts, are renamed by policy. Some people don't do that. They don't do the lockdown script or procedure for servers, and that's a big no-no. But whatever. There's some stupid people out there that don't know what they're doing managing servers. I don't want to be one of them. Just do your homework, study, please. RDP is very powerful, very fast. By default, you have 2 RDP sessions on the admin side, unless you run remote desktop services, and that's expensive. So there's ways around it, but just be careful. Reports. All right. Reports are very important. I can tell you in the category and topic of R, I run reports every day. I use QuickBooks. So I just go over to my calendar, click on the QuickBooks toolbar for calendar, and it shows me everything that's going on. Then I run full reports. Total profit, total net worth. See where everything's at. Run your reports daily. Run your reports on your lines of credit. Run your credit reports. Equifax, Experian, all of them. Some of their reports are wrong, and you have to file a dispute and get things fixed. So don't be afraid to file a dispute. It's not a negative thing. It's just they've got an error in your credit. Just report it. Just tell them, hey, I don't think that's right. And they go and investigate, come back and say, sorry, Mr. Flag. Yes, you're right. We'll fix that. They had my home on my credit report because I bought a HELOC on this home, first and second. And it was like 300,000 at some point in time. But they were saying I was using my max credit, which wasn't. I was only using 4% on credit cards, and the rest was all a HELOC on my mortgage. So I finally got Wells Fargo after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years to get that reported properly, and then my credit report looked great. But those reports made me look bad, like I was way in debt with credit cards, when technically I wasn't. It was just the way my mortgage was being reported. So if you have a mortgage and it's affecting your credit reporting, that's our R, reporting, get it fixed. 2010 to 2019, that's what was dinging me. So hopefully that's fixed now. Oh, and Sierra Nevada Corporation. 3 months to 15 minutes on running a report. I hope they have that fixed now. I mean, I'm looking for opportunities in aerospace, airline, and the funny thing about that is Reno is really good. This is a hub, gateway to the west. They call that Winnemucca, but really it's Reno for 3PLs, third-party logistics. So I don't know. Look for opportunities that people understand reports. If they're not running reports as a GM or some sort of you don't have to have an MBA to know to run a report. But my wife always rides me and says, well, you've got an MBA. You should be like super rich and super genius. Well, I've been rich 2 or 3 times and, knocked down and rebuilding. So we'll get there. Come on, Lord. It'll work out. Last but not least, RJ11, RJ45. RJ11 is your telephone line. Make sure you have the tools. RJ45 is your network, 9 wires. The other one is RJ11 is 2 wires, red and green. You can twist. The polarity doesn't really matter on those. If you have a multi-line system, multi-line phone, you'll have something a little different. I've seen people use RJ45 for telephone and then just do some funky rewiring. And then when you go down to the network rack and you see RJ45, but really it's telephone, but the telco guy used the network port for phones, then you really have to redo your thinking and fix that. Come on, telco people. Stop doing that. Telephone people. I just had yesterday to fix some networking for some telephone people down in Carson City for a client. And they jacked it all up. But they tried. They did a good job. I wouldn't say it was all lost, but they didn't know anything about networking, and the networking person who set it all up didn't give them any documentation. So I had to sort of help them out remotely and over the phone. And we're still not done yet, but RJ11, RJ45, have tools, understand your cross tabs, tabs, make sure you understand those. Worry about your 66 block. If you run 66 block, make sure you have a punch down tool. 2 of them. Somebody's going to borrow it and give it back to you. That's happened to me. And last, RTFM. It means read the manual. In my business, people call me, ask me for help rather than reading the manual or looking it up. Google it. I don't mind, but at some point in time after 4, 5, 10 calls, I start to tell people, my time is worth something. It's worth money. So if you're going to call me and ask me stupid questions that you could have looked up yourself because you don't want to use your brain, I get that. But please respect my time. Compensate appropriately and not in things that I can't use. Cash is good. This has been a good subject. It's been a little bit wiry today. I'm a little hot to trot. It's a Wednesday. It's here at the end of the month, so you got to do your taxes, do your reporting, sales tax. And that's about it for today. This is Andy from Mountain Computers, the Go Green PC Tune-Up Guy. Like, subscribe, and share. And have a great day. Do something good. Help people. Work on your projects. Work on your communications. Look at your contracts. Help your family members out. Help your wife out. Help your spouse out. And have a great day. So this is Andy from Mountain Computers signing off. Have a great day. Bye-bye.